Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to our Mandalorian Season 3 predictions. We're covering Episode 7 slash Chapter 23, the penultimate episode of the season. Now, before we get any further ahead, please make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Giving any sort of feedback, leaving a comment, liking this video, subscribing, all that really helps get us into the YouTube algorithm and pushes us closer towards our next goal of 1,500 subs, which we're very close to. While we're not at Celebration this year, we will be keeping up with the news and giving you guys some of our reactions and thoughts to YouTube Shorts, Instagram, and TikTok. So be on the lookout for those as well. So if you're into that, again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us wherever you can. All right, so for predictions for this week, it might be more accurate to say that we should probably draw from our Chapter 22 predictions video because for the most part, Chapter 22 was a very standalone episode in the vein of Mandalorian Season 1, but at the same time, there was 5 minutes of plot development and some that is pretty basic, not as satisfying as we hoped it would be, but definitely pushes us a little bit further along than we expected. With the episode ending with Bo-Katan reclaiming the Darksaber from Din Djarin, Liam, what do you think happens next? Do we see all the different Mandalorian clans unite under Bo-Katan, or do we see Moff Gideon and his return first?
Okay, so do I think we see the Mandalorians all gather under Bo-Katan, or do I think we see Moff Gideon return next episode first? Man, that's a tough question. I do think the way these episodes have been switching off, it seems like there's a stronger possibility we return back to the New Republic storyline. But I think the fact that Moff Gideon, the mystery of Moff Gideon is still there. The fact that we haven't really unraveled any of it in this latest episode, episode 6. I think we would see Bo-Katan first. I do. I think the Moff Gideon stuff could be the big reveal of the end of episode 7. And that's how we could switch then to episode 8 for next episode when we have the big finale. Maybe the finale, now is our Thrawn reveal point. Maybe it is the overarching who's the villain of the rest of these shows type of reveal. But the Gideon breakout, it doesn't seem to be, it seems like it's a big plot point, but I don't know if Gideon's actually going to do anything this season. It seems like this season is purely set on not just showing a united Mandalore, but also giving Bo-Katan character to all of those people who didn't watch Clone Wars, who didn't watch Rebels. This is a big moment for her. It's a big moment for them. And I do think we kind of go to that immediately. Now, could the first episode, could the first thing in this episode be like Carson Teva trying to track down Moff Gideon, and then he's captured or something? Or could it be some type of New Republic thing? Of course, it could be instead of Bo-Katan. But I do think if we're talking about Bo-Katan versus Moff Gideon, I do think it is much more likely we see what the effects are of all of the Night Owls and Axe Woves and Koska Reeves and all these characters are now coming back into the fold. I would like to see them interact with the entire Children of the Watch. How does all that work? I think that's going to be a cool dynamic, and I think building trust amongst the Mandalorians is kind of going to be the big central piece of this next episode, which will then lead us into kind of a reveal on Moff Gideon's first appearance in this season, and then setting up for whatever the conflict of the finale will be.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of those points, especially the one with Bo-Katan now kind of being the Mandalorian of the season, while also getting a lot of the kind of cyclical redevelopment, recontextualization of who our character is for an entirely new live action TV show based Star Wars fan. Yeah, I agree. I think we do see a lot of the Bo-Katan stuff first, and with the Children of the Watch meeting up with her Night Owls. But I don't think we just end there. I think we do get to see maybe like a beacon of sorts, like Bo-Katan wielding the Darksaber again, calling everyone to Navarro, which is now conveniently all set up. And I'm assuming will look like a pretty decent tailgating situation where everyone can land their ships, the whole fleet and everyone will be accommodated for. Yeah, I could definitely see all of that happening. I definitely want to double down on my Chapter 22 prediction. This being a Dave Filoni written episode, I feel like he has to bring in a Clone Wars or Rebels character. And for me, Fen Rao and his protectors of Concord Dawn, starfighters, and fellow protectors, they have to come back. I'd love to see him in again his more classic Royal Guard inspired armor instead of just his jumpsuit, because that is one of the best Mandalorian armors to this day. But I think again he can play a pretty interesting role to navigate and support Bo-Katan in some ways, kind of deal with the differences between Axe-Woes and the Children of the Watch and people who grew up on Mandalore in the more modern society versus those who grew up on their moons, who were foundlings and whatnot. I think he could fit in there, and it would be one of those cameos that turns into a guest star that I'd love to see further on into the greater narrative. But here at this point in time, we'll definitely steady the ship and refocus and make that transition for all these Mandalorians into one fighting force pretty simple and clear. If we do get to Gideon early, it might be because we see Carson Teva, like you said a little earlier, and maybe Carson brings out Mando for the information that he has about, like, oh, it's been embedded into the ship. Maybe we have a little bit of a confrontation between the children and the Night Owls with Axe Woes, and then they find out, no, it wasn't us. We wouldn't do that. That's not really what we're paid for. And maybe that's what brings Grogu and Din out and is drawn out by Carson Teva, kind of giving them a chance to help him clear the air, clear their name. And maybe that means that Din can't participate at this point in the initial reclamation of Mandalore, but maybe he's given some push by both Bo-Katan and Armorer to be that Mandalorian who can help our presence, our name in the galaxy as a whole, and make sure that our dealings are smoothly handled away behind the scenes and don't alert the attention of a bureaucracy that'll take over and cause damage to their life, just like the Republic did, just like the Separatists did back in the Clone Wars, and of course the Imperials during the Rebels era. I think that'd be pretty interesting. I agree with your point. I think Gideon definitely does show up at the end. I hope it's a little bit longer than how we got him introduced in episode 7 of season 1. I'd like him to have at least 10 minutes of the runtime because I feel like you have to fill in the details of, like, how is he back? Is he stronger than before? What is different about his return now? Does he have like a Mandalorian faction of super commandos behind him? What fleet does he have? All these different things. Yeah, I think Gideon needs some serious fleshing out just to get us into the position. If that means that Elia Kane is drawn into his story, great. I think that still is ultimately the strongest part of her character, that she's still working for Gideon, but she's just manipulated the New Republic's weaknesses at this point in time. I'm hoping for a really packed episode. In my mind, after what we got in the last episode, I need at least 50 minutes of solid plot. Like it needs to really hit for me, and I'm hoping and I'm confident that it will. But on that point of Din and Grogu being drawn out by Carson Tever or whatever the New Republic storyline entails, Liam, do you think that they'll become the focus once more for this next episode and hopefully for the finale as well, especially with Bo-Katan having the Darksaber? Or is that exchange from that last episode a little bit of a red herring?
So the Darksaber, I think that's an interesting plot point, and we talked about it in the review. I know I mentioned it in the review that I personally preferred the transition of the Darksaber back from Din Djarin to Bo-Katan to be a moment of actual conflict, and it's not. I found that extremely disappointing. I still find it extremely disappointing, even removed from that episode, thinking about the episode and thinking about the consequences of those moments. It's pretty unsatisfying. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think Bo-Katan's going to fail again, so I don't think she's gonna lose the Darksaber. If she fails, she's going to die. I think that's what we're looking at here. So I don't think she's going to be defeated and then Din's going to pick it up again and have this whole cycle. I don't think that. I think that's why now that she has it, I do think she's going to be a strong leader. We're going to see a lot of the unity. We're going to see the constant fighting back and forth between Children of the Watch, Night Owls, old ways versus new ways, all of that type of stuff. That's what is going to be the centerpiece of this episode. I'm pretty confident in that. When it comes to Din and Grogu, though, again, I mean, we've talked about reasons why Grogu needs to be in this season. There still have not really been any, other than a really solid flashback sequence we got. But other than that, I mean, we could have gotten that in any Luke moments. So I would like to see Grogu and Din given a reason why the two of them need to be together for this season, why they need to unite. This is Bo-Katan's season. We've said it since the first episode. I know I've been pretty adamant about it since the end of that first episode that this season is setting her up as a character for all the people who didn't watch Clone Wars and Rebels. Now, this is like basically we're redoing things we did in Rebels already with Bo-Katan. So we are reintroducing her back to the mass audiences. This Din does seem to be a secondary character. We could see Din and Grogu do a different side mission, but I think the dynamic between the two has been pretty much set. I do think Din and Grogu kind of continue to be a side character in episode 7. And then when we get to episode 8 and the finale, they're going to have, I don't know if maybe any emotional moments or any meaty moments, but it's going to be a big kind of 1A, 1B plot line, I think, for episode 8. I don't think you can sideline both of them for the entire season. So those are my thoughts. Back to you.
Yeah, I think people do genuinely forget that Bo-Katan at her youngest is very late 40s, probably somewhere in her mid 50s. A character that has been around for a very long time. Even though she says she doesn't like politics, that doesn't mean that she doesn't know what politics are like. She just doesn't like the politics that she's kind of destroyed and the things that she's trying to build up and have that be destroyed and stripped away. There's remorse there. She doesn't want to really put herself in that situation again, but she also kind of does because there's a lot more of that Mandalorian culture of fighting for honor, for doing things by your hands that still appeals to her, and she thinks in some ways being part of a royal family and a lineage there that she has a little bit of ownership and claim to that, even if she's messed up a couple times here and there. Yeah, I think it is permanent. To your point that she could die possibly, I genuinely would not be upset by that. I don't think she dies in this episode per se, but I think if she makes like a sacrificial play that causes her to die, and the Darksaber is like the key to ensuring that all the other Mandalorians survive, that all the threat is eliminated, that the unification still remains. I think she's had a lot of great character work in this season. And she's already got Rebels and she's got Clone Wars, but especially with Rebels, a lot of that characterization is just kind of being redone here. And she wasn't really in that show quite a lot. She was a lot more here in this season alone. I'd say that her die wouldn't be too bad if it is for like, oh, she defended the Mandalorian. She didn't simply lose in a trial by combat or something. If she dies, I still think the dark saber is around, and maybe that's when Din does pick it up because she grants it to him as her final dying wish, and because she didn't lose, she kind of can like pass it on to someone. I don't know. I think that would be pretty interesting. Regardless, I think that Grogu and Din are getting built up this episode, like you said. I think they'll get a little bit more than just like a 1A, 1B finale sort of situation. I think they just have to kind of steal the spotlight. I think Din and his adventures with Grogu and his connections with Grogu, the ultimate realization of what Grogu could be, a Mandalore with the dark saber who has Jedi powers, and this dude who stumbles around, isn't the smartest guy, is unaware of a lot of things, but is so talented, so skilled, has developed so much, and has gone through so much like identity crisis that maybe all the other Mandalorians around him are like, dude, just do your thing. Like you're an inspiration. Figure out your life. You need to do more than just be a follower you've never been. And every time you've gone out of the way to do the things that you felt you had to do, it's generally tilted things in the right way, even if there have been some troubles along the way. And I think maybe having a Fen Rao, again, I want Fen Rao to kind of be whispering in his ear, pushing him along the way. Maybe if we get a Sabine appearance here, pushing him before she departs with Ahsoka for their missions in the Ahsoka series. Trust yourself, trust your gut, do something with your life instead of just feeling stagnant. Because I think at this point, Din doesn't mind helping, but even he's got to feel a little stagnant. Even he's got to feel like, even Grogu hasn't really done much foundling training. He's got like a nice little Beskar shield on his chest. That's about it. Like we got to do something to really push ourselves. And if he can be convinced that doing so not only benefits him but old Mandalorians, I think that'll really put him into the right frame of mind and also be ready for whatever action comes in this episode and especially in the finale. And in regards to the finale and your original point in the first part of our predictions video, yeah, maybe he is the guy who stumbles upon Thrawn or is taken hostage or something. It almost feels like he needs to be given some big mission or new threat that only he can deal with. And while that's not necessarily going to be a thing now with all the Mandalorians uniting, if he's thrown out there into a whole new world where he's got to kind of just be that gunslinger again with Grogu, they both have to fend for themselves, protect each other, and he's more involved in the greater stories of this Mando verse. I don't know if that'll really work for Disney's bottom line, but I think that would be pretty interesting as a narrative connective tissue that everyone has to keep up with in order to be like, okay. I think it would be interesting. I think it would be pretty interesting to have people be almost forced to watch all these other shows because Mando's in it, and when he does show up, it's not like he's just stealing away time. It's because he's been put into a situation where, again, he's got to reinvent himself, but in a lot of ways, it is back to basics. But anyways, I think that's a good place to end this predictions video. Thanks again for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel and make sure to comment down below your own thoughts for what will happen in our chapter 23 slash episode 7 of this Mandalorian season 3. We'll have our Cataclysm review come out sometime next week. Again, Dark Force Rising Legends Book Club review will be coming out after Mando season 3 ends, so hold tight there. We'll have our review for episode 7, chapter 23 next Wednesday, and finale predictions the following Friday. We have streams again this Friday. It'll be a little earlier this week because I also have another conflict, but rest assured, I'm not going to stop streaming. I got you guys covered there, and Liam should hopefully be able to join us in the following week. And we're really close to Jedi Survivor, so definitely hop on if you just want to talk about anything Star Wars, anything to do with media, your interest. You just want to get my opinion on stuff. Jump in. I always love to talk to whoever has been checking out our channel, and I hope that keeps you guys around a little longer. But again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.